Midway wasn't just Universal's follow-up to Earthquake, it was the film that installed speakers so powerful they cracked plaster in theaters, the production where Robert Mitchum refused to leave his bed during filming, and the war epic that exists because Walter Mirisch realized he could recycle millions of dollars of footage from other movies and call it new. While audiences felt their seats vibrate during Sensurround battle sequences in 1976, behind the cameras lurked a director who'd never made a war movie, a cast so old that Henry Fonda was 71, playing an admiral who was 67, and a romance subplot so terrible that Gene Siskel declared the screenwriter deserves a year in the brig. This is the story of old Hollywood's last gasp before Star Wars changed everything forever. Here are 12 weird facts about Midway that reveal what happens when you build a $24 million spectacle from spare parts. And stick around for the bonus fact, because what Universal did to create a 4-hour TV version involved shooting an entirely new romantic subplot that nobody wanted. Let's feel the rumble. Number 12. Sensurround cracked plaster in theaters and one person's ribs. Midway was the second film released in Sensurround, Universal's special low-frequency bass speaker system designed to make audiences physically feel explosions and engine noise. The system employed up to 20 folded horn-loaded speakers producing frequencies as low as 16 Hz at volumes, reaching 120 decibels. Theaters had to rent the special Sherwin Vega equipment for $500 per week, or by 1976 could purchase systems outright. The first 2 rows of seats and seats in rear corners had to be removed to accommodate the massive horn speakers. The effect was so powerful that plaster actually cracked and fell from ceilings in some theaters. Bolts came loose from seats. One documented case reported a moviegoer suffered cracked ribs from the vibrations. Adjacent businesses complained about disruption. By the time Midway opened in June 1976, approximately 800 theaters in the United States had Sensurround equipment, over 2,000 worldwide. But multiplex theaters killed the format because audiences in adjacent screens didn't want to pay money having their films interrupted by rumbling next door. Number 11. Henry Fonda was 71 playing an admiral who was actually 67. The cast of Midway was ancient by Hollywood standards. Henry Fonda, portraying Admiral Chester Nimitz, was 71 years old when the film premiered, remarkably, only 4 years older than the real Nimitz had been during the actual battle. Charlton Heston, playing the lead, was a rapidly aging 52 according to contemporary observers. In the 7 years since Planet of the Apes, he'd become middle-aged, and audiences had to suspend serious disbelief, accepting his character would be allowed near a plane. Glenn Ford was 60, Hal Holbrook was 51, Cliff Robertson was 52, Robert Webber was 51, director Jack Smite was 51, even screenwriter Donald S. Sanford was 58. Multiple cast and crew members were actual World War II veterans. Fonda served in the Navy and narrated John Ford's 1942 Midway documentary. Heston served in the Army Air Forces. Ford served in the Marine Corps. Holbrook joined the Army. Robertson served in the Merchant Marine. Weber served with the Marines in the Pacific. The elderly casting reflected old Hollywood's last generation of stars before the blockbuster era ushered in younger leads. 1976 was their last stand. Number 10. Universal recycled battle footage from 4 different movies. Universal cut every possible corner by licensing archival footage rather than filming new battle sequences. Much of the action came from 20th Century Fox's 1970 film Tora. Producers padded things further with scenes from the 1960 Japanese production Storm Over the Pacific, Hawaii Midway Daikaikuzen, Taiheiyo no Arashi. The Zero crash into the USS Yorktown's bridge originally appeared in the 1956 Universal World War II movie Away All Boats. Doolittle's raid on Tokyo was recycled from the 1944 Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer film 30 Seconds Over Tokyo. The interpolation of old footage was planned in advance. Scenes were shot with actors with scene missing placeholders where archival footage would be dropped in during editing. Producer Walter Mirisch had experience with this approach from his 1952 film Flat Top, which used extensive Navy battle footage. Converting original 16mm Navy archive film to 35mm reduced costs significantly. One piece of archival footage showing a plane crash became one of the most used crash sequences from World War II. In the actual crash, the pilot was barely shaken and climbed out immediately. Number 9. Robert Mitchum filmed all his scenes in bed. Robert Mitchum played Admiral William F. Halsey, one of the Pacific's most aggressive commanders. According to production documents, Mitchum settled on filming his scenes in bed and essentially refused to do anything else. In the finished film, Halsey is confined to a hospital bed suffering from a severe skin condition that prevented him from participating in the Battle of Midway. historically accurate but conveniently requiring zero physical effort from Mitchum. The legendary actor, known for his casual approach to filmmaking and general disdain for Hollywood pretension, apparently decided that lying in bed suited him fine. Mitchum's minimal involvement meant he worked perhaps 1 or 2 days total, collected his paycheck, and left. Producer Walter Mirisch had worked with many stars who required minimal time investment. Most worked just 1 day, but Mitchum's bedbound performance remains the production's most memorable example of star laziness meeting historical convenience. Despite the limited role, Mitchum's name helped sell the all-star ensemble that defined Midway's marketing strategy. Number 8. The film shot aboard USS Lexington, completed after the actual battle. Onboard scenes were filmed in the Gulf of Mexico aboard USS Lexington, an Essex-class aircraft carrier that was the last World War II-era carrier still in active service in 1975. The irony: Lexington was completed after the Battle of Midway actually occurred, meaning the ship portraying vessels from the battle didn't exist during the historical events. Filming at sea took 3 weeks, during which crews shot scenes with dialogue and silent footage, plus made plates for rear-view projection and aerial shots of vintage planes positioned to be printed into flights of 6 or 9. Charlton Heston, Glenn Ford, and Hal Holbrook were aboard during the maritime shoot. A scene involving Henry Fonda was shot at Naval Air Station, Pensacola, Florida, with the Florida coast standing in for the Pacific. Modern crew members of Lexington were persuaded to cut their hair and shave to conform to World War II Navy regulations. After watching filming, they got caught up in the production's authenticity efforts. Lexington is now a museum ship at Corpus Christi, Texas. Additional filming occurred at Terminal Island Naval Base and United States Naval Station Long Beach in California, plus San Diego. Number 7. The romance subplot was so bad Gene Siskel said the writer deserves a year in the brig. The fictional Captain Matt Garth, Heston, has a son, Lieutenant Tom Garth, Edward Albert, who wants to marry a Japanese-American girl named Haruko Sakura, Christina Kokubo. Her parents have been detained and could be sent to internment camps. Young Tom expects his father to help save Haruko's family while simultaneously dealing with his rebellion against paternal authority. Critics savaged this invented storyline. Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune wrote that screenwriter Donald S. Sanford deserves a year in the brig for inserting amid the battle scenes a stupid subplot involving a young American sailor in love with a Japanese-American girl. Roger Ebert noted the film emerges more as a passingly exciting theme park extravaganza than a quality motion picture and complained Sanford's cluttered script got overwhelmed by its action effects. Gary Arnold of the Washington Post called it a tired combat epic where authentic acts of bravery and sacrifice have become the pretext for such feeble, inadequate dramatization. The romance was a forced 1970s attempt at political correctness, addressing internment while providing melodrama. It fails spectacularly. Number 6. Fonda and Mai Fune discovered their admirals were both missing fingers. During research, Henry Fonda and Toshiro Mifune were both astonished to learn that the admirals they portrayed, Chester Nimitz and Isoroku Yamamoto, were each missing fingers from accidents. Fonda consciously folded back his finger throughout his performance to accurately portray Nimitz's injury. Mifune had his uniforms and gloves specially made to be as accurate as possible, accommodating Yamamoto's missing fingers. This attention to historical detail impressed cast and crew. Mifune sent his script to Minoru Genda, a Japanese naval aviator who planned the Pearl Harbor attack, and to Yamamoto's son to verify historical accuracy. Reportedly, Mifune had been scheduled to play Yamamoto in Tora, 1970, but withdrew when director Akira Kurosawa left that project. The filmmakers wanted to portray Japanese and Americans as equals, showing both sides fairly, a progressive approach for 1976. Fonda's subtle finger folding and Mifune's costume modifications demonstrate how dedicated performers inhabit historical figures through small but significant physical details that most audiences never consciously notice, but which add authenticity. Quick pause, hit that like and subscribe button because we're halfway through this geriatric war epic, and what comes next includes John Gearman getting replaced, the Smithsonian wanting the Japanese carrier set, and how this film became 1976's last gasp of old Hollywood. Let's keep going. Number 5. John Gearman and Sterling Siliphant both left before production. After Charlton Heston's involvement guaranteed the green light, Universal hired John Gearman, The Towering Inferno, 1974, to direct, and Sterling Siliphant, In the Heat of the Night, to rewrite Donald S. Sanford's screenplay. Both eventually left the project before production began. Jack Smite replaced Gearman as director, This was Smite's first major war film, despite a lengthy TV directing career. Smite came from television and was hired specifically because he was affordable and efficient, perfect for a production that needed to maximize star budgets while minimizing technical costs. Sanford's screenplay ultimately received sole credit despite Silliphant's involvement. Principal photography was scheduled to end around July 20, 1975, meaning the film was in production throughout much of 1975 for a June 1976 release. The director's shuffle reflected Universal's uncertainty about the project. War films hadn't been reliably profitable in years. Patton and Kelly's heroes succeeded, but Tora, and Too Late the hero lost money. Universal needed an efficient craftsman, not an auteur. Smite delivered exactly that. Number 4. The Japanese carrier sets were so authentic the Smithsonian wanted them. The construction of Japanese aircraft carrier interiors was so historically accurate and detailed that the Smithsonian Institution later asked Walter Mirisch to reassemble the set for a presentation there. Production designers supervised construction of carrier interiors matching historical specifications from Japanese naval records and photographs. Every detail, control panels, communications equipment, structural elements, was researched and replicated. The Smithsonian's request validated the production's commitment to authenticity despite the extensive use of recycled battle footage. Interiors were filmed at Universal Studios, while exteriors used actual naval bases and ships. The contrast between meticulously constructed interior sets and repurposed archival footage created Midway's split personality, simultaneously authentic and cobbled together. Mirisch's practical approach balanced cost-cutting footage, recycling with genuine craftsmanship where it mattered most. The Smithsonian recognition confirmed that even in a film criticized for its cheap spectacle approach, certain elements achieved museum-quality historical accuracy. That Japanese carrier set represented old Hollywood's traditional commitment to physical craftsmanship before CG. I would eliminate the need for such elaborate construction. Number 3. Point Mugu. California stood in for Midway because it has sand dunes. Scenes depicting Midway Island were filmed at Point Mugu, California. Director Jack Smite explained the location choice simply: Point Mugu has sand dunes, just like Midway. We built an airstrip, a tower, some barricades, things like that. We did a lot of strafing and bombing there. The production constructed minimal period-appropriate structures on the California coastline, then used camera angles and framing to suggest the isolated Pacific atoll where the actual battle occurred. This practical approach saved enormous costs compared to transporting cast, crew, and equipment to remote Pacific locations. Point Mugu Naval Air Station had been used for military filming since World War II, offering convenient access to Navy cooperation, equipment, and advisors. The California coast doubling for the Pacific became standard practice in war films. Audiences rarely questioned geographical substitutions when production values maintained believability. Smite's straightforward explanation, it has sand dunes, just like Midway, reflects the pragmatic filmmaking philosophy defining the entire production. Close enough was good enough when budgets required creative solutions and audiences couldn't easily verify accuracy. Number 2. Universal shot 45 additional minutes for NBC with a new romance nobody asked for. Midway became such a hit that Universal produced a 3-hour television version for NBC with 45 additional minutes of new footage. The additions included some Battle of the Coral Sea combat footage, but mostly consisted of an invented romantic subplot involving Captain Garth's girlfriend Anne, played by Susan Sullivan, 34, only 18 years younger than the 52-year-old Heston. The network wanted soapy romance so that ladies would watch the epic 2-night TV event. In this extended version, Heston's character is frustrated because the woman he left Tom's mother for is hassling him about leaving the Navy. The television editions were shot in 4:3 aspect ratio instead of theatrical widescreen. Universal tried to save money by not anticipating future home video markets. Sullivan and Heston attempted to inject some heat into scenes that felt forced and unnecessary. The theatrical romance subplot with the son was already terrible. Adding an adult romance for the father compounded the melodrama. The 3-hour version aired as a network event, but is rarely seen today. Most home video releases reverted to the theatrical cut, eliminating Sullivan's scenes to emphasize the all-male cast and wartime action. Number 1. The film earned $46,200,000, old Hollywood's last gasp before Star Wars. Midway opened June 18, 1976, and earned approximately $46,200,000 domestic box office, becoming the year's 9th highest grossing film. It placed between Clint Eastwood's The Enforcer at number 8 and The Bad News Bears at number 10. Only $46,200,000 was needed to crack 1976's top 10, a quaint number compared to modern blockbusters. This was old Hollywood's final moment. The previous summer, Jaws had shocked the industry with $260 million. The following summer, Star Wars would earn $460 million. Both films permanently changed how Hollywood operated, ushering in the blockbuster era that still dominates today. Midway represented the last gasp of 1960s-style all-star ensemble war films marketed to older audiences. Director Jack Smite's pedestrian craftsmanship, the geriatric cast, the recycled footage, the Sensurround gimmick, all of it felt dated even in 1976. Critics recognized Midway as a throwback, a theme park extravaganza rather than genuine cinema. Yet it succeeded commercially by delivering exactly what its target audience wanted: familiar stars in a familiar genre with a technological gimmick. Within 2 years, this style of filmmaking would be extinct, replaced by younger directors, younger stars, and franchise tentpoles. Bonus fact: Henry Fonda narrated John Ford's 1942 documentary, footage from which appears in this film. Cast member Henry Fonda had narrated the 1942 John Ford documentary, The Battle of Midway, a short propaganda film shot during the actual battle. Some footage from Ford's documentary was incorporated into the 1976 fictionalized version, creating a strange loop where Fonda appeared in both the original documentary and the dramatization 34 years later. Ford's 18-minute documentary, filmed in Technicolor during the actual battle, captured genuine combat footage including bomb damage and casualties. It won the Academy Award for Best Documentary in 1943. By using Ford's original footage, Midway connected itself to authentic history. Fonda's voice had narrated actual events, and now he portrayed the admiral who commanded them. This layering of documentary and fiction, past and present, authentic and recreated, defined Midway's identity. It was simultaneously real and fake, historical and Hollywood, respectful and exploitative. Fonda's dual participation, first as narrator of truth, then as actor in dramatization, embodied the film's contradictions. The footage from Ford's documentary remains the most authentic element in a film otherwise constructed from recycled scenes and studio sets. Midway premiered June 18, 1976, during America's bicentennial summer. Sensurround speakers cracked plaster. Robert Mitchum stayed in bed. Henry Fonda was 71, playing an admiral who'd been 67. Universal recycled footage from 4 other movies and called it new. Gene Siskel declared the screenwriter deserved prison time for the terrible romance subplot. And somehow, despite critical dismissal and transparent cost-cutting, the film earned $46,200,000 and satisfied audiences who wanted old Hollywood spectacle. But time was running out. Star Wars would premiere the following summer and change everything forever. The geriatric all-star ensemble war film would become extinct. Sensurround would disappear, killed by multiplexes where adjacent theaters couldn't handle the rumble. The practical approach of recycling footage would be replaced by CG, allowing filmmakers to create whatever they imagined. Midway stands as old Hollywood's final epic, a monument to an industry about to be revolutionized by younger directors, younger stars, and younger audiences. Within 2 years, Charlton Heston's era would end. Henry Fonda would be dead by 1982. The USS Lexington would become a museum, and war films would be reborn through Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan 2 decades later. But for one bicentennial summer, audiences felt their seats vibrate, watched recycled battle footage, and accepted 71-year-old men playing 67-year-old admirals. It was Hollywood's last trick before the magic changed forever.